Vineet, if you were to go back and do it all over again, imagine you are 20, but in 2025.
Two very distinct features of when I started and today is there is an information overload. You just know too much. In our times, you just knew too little. And
A young 20-year-old wants to start his or her venture with an interesting idea, but may not necessarily have the support of an investor, may not have a check signed right away. What's your opinion as an impact investor?
The best entrepreneurs are those who bootstrap. Because
where are you betting your money right now, sectoral wise?
In my view, the real game changers are going to be
going back one single pivotal decision that was very tricky for you to take that suddenly changed the trajectory of your entire career and your entrepreneurship journey.
A development finance institution regional director for Asia met me and said, I'm very inspired by what you're doing. However, for us to participate is very difficult. We are too small. Let me convince you, let me convince my system to give you $500,000 as grant. And that $500,000 will make you $1 million fund. And you may be able to do a lot of good things very quickly. I thought about it. I was, I think, 31 by that time. And I said, I don't want your grant.
A 21-year-old is watching you and wants to know the 3 major non-negotiable skills I need to have, where a lot of the work can be done by AI that in certain shape or format future-proof my career. So welcome Vineet to the CEO Diary podcast. It's an immense honor and a privilege to have you again after hosting you in the Global Governance Initiative Impact Investing Masterclass. From my side, if I were to introduce you, you wear multiple hats, but few of them are you have been the founder and the vice chairman of Aavishkar Group. You have also been the co-founder of IntelliCap as well. Would absolutely love if you could also briefly introduce yourself in your own words.
Thank you for having me. My name is Vineet Rai. I am a classical middle-class Indian boy belonged to Varanasi, was born in Rajasthan. Graduated in 1991. Not the best year for India. None of us remember it it was a year India had to mortgage its school to push away the balance of payment crisis. Wanted to join army, managed to join forestry, was in a forest for 3.5 years. Then inspired by my wife, or threatened by my wife, whichever way you want to see it, left the forest to go to IIM Ahmedabad, set up probably India's first incubator, which was not my idea, somebody else's idea, I just happened to be there. Ran it for 4 years, became a little high-headed, thought I can change the world on my own. Quit my job, started with 5,000 rupees, and over the last 20 years, have played a significant role in some areas. So I founded Aavishkar, founded IntelliCap, acquired Aarohan, set up Ashwa, set up Aavishkar Foundation, Aavishkar Carbon, and tried to expand that. Today we are managed around $1.5 billion in assets, have 10,000 employees. We are probably unique in that sense. We are investor and entrepreneur both. So we give money to others while we also believe for ourselves. And that's it.
It's an overwhelming introduction and I have a lot of questions. We will double click on your solopreneurship journey also because a lot of young professionals want to start alone. So we will want to cover that as well. But let's go back to the back. By that, I mean, let's start from the start. You mentioned Varanasi and you also mentioned Rajasthan. Could you walk me through what was your family structure was like? Were you the eldest? Were you the youngest? What were typical dinner table conversations in your family was like? Maybe if that shaped you to become what you have become today.
Well, so I belong to a village near Varanasi, right on the Ganges. But I was born in Jodhpur, Rajasthan, right in the middle of a desert. And most of my life was in Rajasthan, actually, because my father was in a government job. Transferable, so we used to travel a lot. Of course, I used to go to Varanasi pretty much every year. So I had some idea of the spiritual side of the world, but we were brought up during 80s and 2000s, so 1970 to 1990 is my childhood. And during those periods, one thing was very clear, India was very satisfied with itself, and so were we. So there were no gizmos, no mobile phone, no internet, nothing, no computer. And life was very simple. Ambitions were limited, expectations were high. So if you are a studious child, you had to become an engineer or doctor, so expectations were always high. For some strange reason, I was a rebel in that sense. So everybody, I think in my class 12, out of 42 students in the class, only 2 people did not become an engineer and doctor. One was me and another guy who chose to become a PhD student. So that can tell you how difficult it was to not be an engineer or a doctor. I wanted to join army and I was very clear about it. I was brainwashed, threatened, cajoled to actually become an engineer and then join army, because I later realized that you can join army as an engineer also. But I was very convinced that I would do what I felt like. For some strange reason, army didn't like me, so I went through as many interviews and got rejected. Army has a very nice way of rejecting you. They say you are too good to be true, you're too good for us. I'm one of those rare characters who took it literally and said, "Oh, I'm too good." And this is a way. So I'm always a guy who can find a silver lining in the darkest of the clouds. So I see every failure as an opportunity to learn, discover something. My mother was a very hard, disciplined mother, so I would have done very well in army. I can actually still get up and get ready in 5 minutes. My father was the most happy-go-lucky, easygoing person. So complete contrast at home. I wanted to be the best in everything, but I also knew I was not good at anything. So I decided to find my own ways of being the best sports person amongst the studious guys and became the most studious person amongst the best sports people. So I was number 1, but in my own category. And that I think is what could be seen as my cradle thoughts on entrepreneurship. You should know your strengths, you should know your weaknesses, and you should excel within the limits of your strengths. And that I think is what my childhood taught me.
Very beautiful. I think a lot of self-awareness around strengths and weaknesses, and I'm sure you would have achieved whatever you have achieved coming from that background as well. Let's now talk to a 20 to 25-year-old. Behind the scenes, we were discussing that's the target audience, and that has been the target audience primarily for Global Governance Initiative as well. Vineet, if you were to go back and do it all over again, imagine you are 20, but in 2025, a lot of young professionals are struggling to find a beautiful balance between impact, which has been a central theme to your career, making money, which is a realistic need of our society and world, and also deep passion, which may come from the family line or bloodline. So how would you balance, or how would you figure out? I think in the hindsight, when we get a fair bit of success, we start owning our weaknesses also. But when we are young, we are very nervous, we are very anxious of, let's say, imposter syndrome, that I will be judged and I will fail. So what would be your response to that?
2 very distinct features of when I started and today is there is an information overload. You just know too much. In our times, you just knew too little. So therefore, the challenge of today is very different from challenge of my time. In my times, where will you get a job itself was a miracle. I mean, today, which job do I choose or which line do I go is the challenge. So today's world is going to be very different from what I was. But I think the basic criteria of being successful pretty much remain the same. I think clarity comes from dropping all the 3 things as constraints that you mentioned. Should you chase impact? Well, I don't think so. At 20-year-old, you should really be spending your time Should I chase impact? Should I chase money? Should I do anything different? So if I was in today's world, I will take every day at a time, not run too far ahead of myself. I would ignore trying to fall into the trap of being judged by others' point of view. As I told you, when during our times we were judged far more. Of course, today you are judged by unknown people because in social media, almost 98% of the 99.9% of the people who are judging you are unknown to you. We were judged by known people, the neighbors, the aunties, the uncles. So the pressure was extreme even at that time in a very different context. You have to learn to pretty much shrug off the pressure because really it doesn't matter since you don't know 99.9% of them, they don't matter to you. So the only person who matters to you is people who are around you. And I think the most important person is you yourself. And so my first position today as a 20-year-old would be to ask myself what excites me. And if I am excited by everything, then I'll actually say, is there a problem worth solving? And so if you are excited by something, then that becomes those chase that dream. If you actually believe you are excited by everybody, then probably to basically focus yourself down, look around and ask yourself, is there a problem that you can find that is worth solving? And once you find a problem worth solving, try to look at making money out of that problem, delivering impact out of the problem, being transparent, honest, and building a business around that problem. All those things, or working in that problem, all those would be my defining features. And I will not think beyond the obvious. So 2 years, 3 years, the maximum you should think. Remember, this world is so dynamic right now that every morning we get up to watch what the president of our alien country is saying about the world. So in a context like that, where every day the world changes, not just you. So why run too far ahead of yourself?
This is such a practical advice, Vineet, in a world where most of the people are talking about vision, but that advice falls flat on the face or flat on the ground for a 20-year-old. You're talking about solving a problem that is worth solving. When we are talking about money, maybe I can use that as an opportunity to ask about the $1 billion assets that you have been managing. First and foremost, impact investing, you and I might understand this, but on internet, I genuinely think it's still a very niche space. People may not still understand. So coming from you, it would be fantastic if you could define what is really impact investing briefly. And point number two, when you manage this $1.4 billion assets through your 10,000 employees and team, what criteria do you use typically to decide which bet is worth betting upon?
So let me just start by saying that there is something called investing, where you actually manage assets, somebody else's money. It is also done by banks, but they do it for credit and debt and different kinds of products. So an investor actually collects money from other people, makes a commitment, and then try to use this capital to find the people who are building very scaled businesses to create significant scale and solve a problem in the process. Now, this is what investing is. Venture capital, private equity all falls into this area. In fact, investing is also investing. So the first thing is to understand investing. Somebody else's capital, you raise it on your credibility, you give it to somebody else to actually build a business. And if that business becomes very successful, you get disproportionate returns. And if the business fails, you lose your money. That's the basic premise of investing. The second part is every investment delivers impact. It creates jobs, it creates livelihoods, it reduces risk in the life of the people. So all businesses, private equity, venture capital, hedge fund, everything delivers impact. However, if you are one person who's excited by the idea of making the difference in the lives of people who are in the bottom of the pyramid, or who wants to make the world more equal, because you can deliver impact by investing, but if you are excited by the idea of making the world more equal, then you choose to become an impact investor, where you say, I will not make an investment just to build a business. I will ask myself this tough question: does this business genuinely change lives? And will this business keep changing lives over a period of time as I invest? Now, this is where you are putting a screen in front of you. And let's say there are 100 companies, maybe only 10 will qualify to come this side. Now, that is called impact investing, where you put in a screen and that screen says, hey, is this company going to deliver impact? As it delivers business and scales up, chances are out of 100, only 10 companies will pass through. Let me give you an example. Mercedes-Benz or any high quality, fancy Maserati, Ferrari, they all actually employ people, they all create jobs. But actually, if there is no Maserati, the world will not change. But if you manufacture a tractor, then the tractor actually helps a farmer to plow the land better, and in the process, therefore, gives an opportunity for him or her to increase their livelihood. In the process, probably actually increase the productivity of the land, and therefore feeds somebody else who may not have. So there is actually a process. So just a very crude example. It's not necessarily a best example for impact investing, but just to make everybody understand. If you are manufacturing a Maserati or a Ferrari or a Mercedes, then you are essentially eligible for investing. Chances are you're going to make a lot of money by investing in that. But if you are producing a tractor that is actually for the farmers, then you are potentially making a choice of getting into a product that is designed for people coming from the lower economic strata, and you are helping them gain income. Now, this is just a crude analogy to make things simpler. So out of the 100 automobile companies, maybe only 5 or 10 will qualify for you to actually invest in. And that's how impact investing goes.
Very beautiful articulation. I think the intent also matters, that you are trying to make the world equal through a tractor or maybe through a water sanitation initiative.
So if you actually pick the definition, then the definition says the intent, you have to articulate your intent upfront rather than having a default impact. So you articulate your intent first and then you report on your intent. So there are two conditions for impact investing. The first is articulation of impact, and the second is actually reporting of the impact. Now, it is possible you may report less impact, more impact, but you have to report it.
Fair enough. And do you want to comment on how do you go about finding the opportunities worth betting upon?
So it's easy and it's difficult. So the best thing to do is look for people who have strong conviction, very strong conviction about an idea that they believe will work. Then you engage with those people, and belief is in addition to having very strong conviction, do they have the ability to reflect and course correct in case their conviction is not going forward. These are two essential things we look for. The first part is actually, do you have a conviction? That conviction could be about changing the world, getting the clean water to poor. It could actually be sending a satellite to moon, putting a geostationary orbit in a geostationary orbit. Could be anything, but are you convinced about and you have the capability? Then you actually look at that person's ability. So, okay, you may have a great idea, I want to send a satellite up, but what have you done to send a satellite up? So, what kind of effort you put in? And then, when you actually look at the idea, the kind of effort they have put in, and then when you get into a conversation with them, you try to make a judgment whether they actually have an ability to reflect and course correct. Now, that reflection and course correction is very important, because a bull-headed person who actually want to go in one way may be successful, but it's not a great investment opportunity, because he or she will continue to do what they want to do, even in the face of using their head to break the wall, which I think is a good conviction, but the outcome is very clear: the head will break, not the wall. So whether the person is willing to make the adjustment to understand that my head will break, the wall will not, and therefore can I find a door or a window to jump out? I think that really is what we look for in addition to the conviction.
All right. Very interesting. Talking of conviction, there are so many people who talk about things, but their actions don't match those words, right? So, do you have your own criteria to check if someone is bluffing around or is genuinely interested in that impact? How do you check about for conviction?
So actually, that is a much easier this thing. Half an hour, 45 minutes of conversation. Sometimes even 15 minutes of conversation is more than enough. So I think use of words, and I therefore I didn't want to say it right now, but when somebody says very strongly, I'm very passionate about it, I lose interest in that person's passion, because if you're passionate, you don't need to say it. I should be able to figure it out. And if you keep saying I'm passionate, then I know you're not passionate. You are cheating. You're probably lying to yourself, not to me, but lying to yourself. So the only thing that you look for is the person convinced or is the person lying to themselves, not to you. They don't lie to me. They invariably people lie to themselves, not to you.
Fantastic response. And let's extend this conversation to a bit of solopreneurship. Vineet, you started alone. Of course, I'm sure you had support, family support, the team support. Solopreneurship is picking up in India, all thanks to institutions or media coverage of Shark Tank as well. A young 20-year-old wants to start his or her venture with an interesting idea, but may not necessarily have the support of an investor, may not have a check signed right away. What's your opinion as an impact investor? Can solopreneurship really create sustainable impact without the help of an investor, or is the check really needed? For context, we have bootstrapped GGI throughout. I would not say that we actually never had volume dreams. We always had a very niche dreams, but happy to get your perspective to a 20-year-old who wishes to start but doesn't have a check as a support ecosystem.
So I think so there are lots of myths get created because of the kind of attention those with capital raising. So capital raising is just a means to an end. It has no meaning otherwise. The best entrepreneurs are those who bootstrap because they exactly know what they are doing. Then there are entrepreneurs who cannot bootstrap. For example, again I give you an analogy. You can't build a step ladder to moon. Just because you know how to build a ladder, it won't reach the moon. So you've got to do something beyond just building the ladder. So when you are bootstrapping, you are quite close to understanding how to sell and how to sell the cost of the price. So the price that you sell is higher than the cost at which you produce. Now, once you have figured that out and you can produce that, generally the growth rates will be slow, but you are fully in control of your destiny. You know where to go, how to go, etc. And you make your choices. Maybe you not scale fast, or you will not become very large in a short period of time. Now, there are some ideas that require infusion of capital because you want to grow very fast. Now, if you do not want to grow very fast, then raising capital, especially venture capital and the kind of capital, is not a smart way. Even for impact investing, if you have an idea that can transform the lives of people at scale, you are looking at venture capital, it has to turbocharge your growth. In all possible, probably in venture capital, the turbocharge required is much faster. So maybe you want to grow 10x in 3 years. In impact investing, people may agree to 6x or 5x or 4x. But growth is actually, I mean, you can't walk away from the word growth. So that's actually the second part. The third part of it is, in the process of growth, your business model may go for a toss, which means you might do things that sound illogical for a short period of time. Because growth is paramount, you might do things. In venture capital, more so. In impact investing, less so. But it is possible because you raise capital, you may do things like, in cases happens in e-commerce and others, where you start selling at below the cost of the product. That's an illogical thing. That's actually how you got what I call dominance investing. So you invest to gain dominance, and then you actually want to win back the customer. In impact investing, less so because it's not a business for dominance. But at the end of it, you're still trying to build scale. So as a solopreneur, if you understand and you want to bootstrap, that's the best strategy. If you raise capital, you now are subservient to the idea of growth. The day you raise capital, you have to be subservient to the idea of growth. Not only are you subservient to the idea of growth, you are subservient to the idea of exit. Now, unless you can actually take these two things in your thought process, please don't raise capital. And that's really the difference.
In terms of dividing the opportunities into needing capital and not needing capital. My next question is at the intersection of your leadership journey and your solopreneurship as well. Going back, were there any, let's say, single most difficult decision you had to make in your life in your 20s or in your early 30s when you had started Aavishkar Group as a single founder, which you think would have impacted your next 20 to 30 years? So going back, one single pivotal decision that was very tricky for you to take and that suddenly changed the trajectory of your entire career and your entrepreneurship journey.
I took a lot of decisions that changed my trajectory on the wrong side, but they actually also is the reason why we succeeded. So first, let me correct. I'm not necessarily a solopreneur because my wife was my first investor and actually backed me. So she gave me roughly $2,000 at that time. Without that $2,000, I wouldn't have actually started. And she played some role between the first 6-7 years within the business as well. Though she prefers to be in the background and doesn't necessarily come forward very often. She's a significant shareholder of Aavishkar Group. So she continues to be a significant shareholder. Not necessarily very active, but so I was not necessarily a perfect solopreneur in that sense. The decision. So again, this is conviction, and a lot of people will say I was a bull-headed guy who was trying to break the wall with his head. So I was very convinced, and you have to go back to 2000. In 2000, there were good people who used to raise grants and used to run not-for-profits to change the world. And then there were smart entrepreneurs who used to run a business and make money. So there was absolute clarity, there was no confusion. Now I broke in the scene on 2001 with the idea that I want to do good while making money. Now that's the most stupid thing, and most people will tell me, boss, decide this side or that side. What are you sitting on the fence in between? So when I was very clear, I'm not this side, that side. So in 2003, when my whole fund, or 2004, my whole fund had reached around $500,000, $500,000 in size. A development finance institution, regional director for Asia, met me and said, I'm very inspired by what you're doing. However, for us to participate is very difficult. We are too small. Let me convince you, let me convince my system to give you $500,000 as grant. And that $500,000 will make you $1 million fund. And you may be able to do a lot of good things very quickly. I thought about it. I was, I think, 31 by that time. And I said, I don't want your grant. And one of my mentor, advisor, philosopher, guide, Arun Dayal, who joined me in 2001, he was at that time 50, had more gray hairs. Now I have gray hairs. At that time I was completely black. And he used to come to the meetings so that I don't say anything very stupid, like what I did. I mean, of course, my very abrupt and very brusque response led to us being thrown out of the office very quickly. When we were walking out of that long walkway, Arun turned to me and said, Vineet, was that a very smart thing? Don't you think? That was a very abrupt and very brusque response to a very kind and generous offer. And my response to was, Arun, if we take this money today, we will become a not-for-profit because this is grant. The moment we get this money, we will increase our expenses, we will get caught into all the reasons why grants create. And my whole argument of creating Aavishkar was to be against grant. Now, of course, the size, the significance of the amount, the desperate situation we were in at that point of time, all demanded me to accept that money. And by saying no, I am pretty much damaging. So this is 2003, and it took us another 2.5 years to raise the remaining $500,000. So we reached $1 million in 2005, 26 December 2005, which was roughly 2.5 years after I declined that $500,000 grant. But what it did was it gave me the conviction to stay on course. And so hard decisions that allowed me to stay on course sounded extremely distressing and damaging, but not to me personally. To anybody else who heard the story said, how did you decide to say no? I don't think so. There was any courage at my point. I was just convinced about my idea. And saying no seemed like the right thing. And Satakshi, the only other thing that I would want the audience to understand is every time you take a position, you pay a cost. So do not expect to take a brave position and not being penalized for it. The cost could be very heavy. Cost could lead to your the death of the business, your own death, etc. Please do not think about this as a romantic story where you took a hard decision and things turn out to be good. So I want people to understand that part, that it took 2.5 years. So 5 years from 5,000 rupees to 5 crores or $100 to $1 million, 2.5 years to $500,000. Then within one day I could have become $1 million and then said no and spent another 2.5 years to reach $1 million.
It's a brave story. At the same time, I have typically noticed what looks like bravery from outside. To that person, it is nothing but just clarity of thought that this is the path that I want to be on. I think my generation has also seen Vinod Khosla. And I'm taking his example because there are fantastic ace investors like him who kind of view themselves as entrepreneurs and investors, but they built a career outside of India. We are privileged to have entrepreneurs and investors like you building in India, building for impact. What's your view in this dynamically changing geopolitical scenario? Do you think India can take an interesting position to solve global challenges? And if yes, what role can the Indian youth play in positioning of India at a global stage?
So I think Vinod Khosla is a genius. I won't rate him as, it would be stupid of me to compare myself with him. He's actually exceptional. What he has done is quite extraordinary. I couldn't have got into an IIT. He dropped out of IIT. So huge difference between us. And I need to actually acknowledge my capability and my competence. So I'm actually a good example for ordinary guys. Vinod Khosla is a great example for geniuses. So let's start from there. Now the second part of it is, see, at the end of it, as an entrepreneur, as a person, every challenge is an opportunity. So when you see a challenge, the other side is the opportunity. The current geopolitics has put a very different kind of spotlight on the youth of today. It is not as challenging as it was in 1991 when we were mortgaging our gold. But in the current context, it is as challenging. When you are being tariffed at a rate that is exceptional, it is as challenging. Now, there are three things that bring success. One is actually you have to be uncompromising. So you have to have strong conviction. You have to be uncompromising belief that you can build something great. But then the third thing that you have is you do not expect to work half as hard and expect twice as good a result. Now, time for that is gone. So India, in today's geopolitical environment, would support its entrepreneurs way beyond what India has ever done in its history. At the same time, it would expect its entrepreneurs to put their head down and look for success over a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades, and not look to retire in 6 months' time or 6 years' time or 5 years' time. The other thing, and I'm going to be a big contrarian here, this whole discussion around unicorn has to stop in India. This celebration of unicorn must stop. Unicorn is a mythical animal, and so are real unicorns also. They are all mythical. We have to build businesses that produce high quality solutions for the problems that the world and India is solving for. And those problems will require entrepreneurs to slug it out for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And they need to work 20 hours, 15 hours, 17 hours. Unfortunately, time for easy money and easy raise and constant growth is going to be a chimera. It is a dream. Probably some of us have lived through it. People have enjoyed that. But I think time for real hard work and long-term thinking, the word long-termism is actually for India and its people is now. So, I mean, we are looking for 5% of Indians to think long-term, 5% of Indians to work maybe more than anybody else in the world would work for. And those 5% should inspire the remaining 95% to actually give 200% in the 8 hours they spend their time.
Very interesting idea. And I genuinely think in your entire career phase, you cannot escape hard work. If you'll not do it now, then eventually it will just catch up with you in certain shape or format. Let's now talk about sectors. And I am asking this question from the perspective of an entrepreneur and maybe as an investor also who is looking to invest in the market, the future of impact. What particular 2, 3 sectors, maybe climate, maybe agriculture, maybe textiles, in the sense of responsible textiles, do you think the future of impact lies, or is the need of the hour where we need to be solving our problems in? Where are you betting your money right now, sectoral wise?
I think, in my view, the real game changers are going to be advanced manufacturing. So we'll have to produce higher quality, more precision instruments, new. I mean, basically, our manufacturing has to really get into advanced manufacturing. They don't need not be extremely large capex heavy. So we have to rethink, reimagine manufacturing itself. We have to actually look at our agriculture and rethink what is it that we can do differently, uniquely. We have to be science and research led rather than actually jugaad and short thought process to solving a immediate and urgent problem. So from immediate and urgent, we have to go into structurally long-term thinking to bring about a change. So climate, of course, is a very long-term, strong problem, and we can come up with solutions in that area, great solutions. But I think advanced manufacturing, given that the kind of demographic dividend we have, we need to create a significant amount of jobs. My still belief is the China model or the Western model, India will evolve its own model. That model will have a combination of, we have been a service economy for a long period of time, and there are very strong, solid reasons why service economy has benefited India, even though it actually created a very lopsided India. So those who are educated, speak English, get better jobs. Manufacturing, plumbing, and people doing hard work still continue to struggle at the bottom. But I think India is going to evolve from here and would actually start respecting those jobs that actually have different kinds of skill at the same level. It actually respect the service industry. Service industry will continue to be a dominant say for India because the way we are born, brought up, etc., our focus on education genuinely pushes a larger percentage of our population to enjoy being in the service space. But I do see a significant evolution on the manufacturing side. I do see more new ideas emerging on agriculture, climate, housing, infra, which take into account sustainability as the bedrock principle. And that theme is actually quite evident lately as you see the number of entrepreneurs who reach out to you. They are reasonably aware that if you do something that damages the earth, it would actually come back to bite you in a near future. I mean, if 1990 somebody would have told me that in 2025 breathing will be a problem, I would have probably not believed it. But today's kids are able to actually see that challenge with their own eyes. And it's not that we can't solve it, it's just that we need to put more effort and be thoughtful about solving.
Very interesting. Vineet, could you double click a little bit on advanced manufacturing? I mean, most of the solutions come from a problem. So in the existing setup, I know there is inefficiency, and that's why there was zero effect, zero defect initiative by the government of India as well. What problem is there in the current manufacturing because of which advanced manufacturing will be required and will become the future of the impact investing? I'm just trying to bridge the gap between problem and solution.
So see, impact investing is actually just a tool of capital deployment. So we shouldn't give it too much weightage in the context of the challenges the country is facing. But let's actually take, we went through a short skirmish on our border. And just think about India and 800 years of foreign rule that we have gone through. So if you take that into context, a country has to protect itself. A society has to protect itself. Now, some of the things that actually helped us in this war was what we produced and where we were on precision side. So if you are able to actually, and then you also started realizing that tariff war is essentially how the world actually penalizes you for taking your own position. Then you also know that there are other people who have actually many different things that allows you to pass information that actually those who are invading or fighting with you have a better set of information. So I think as a country, we suddenly realized there are lots of things that can be yanked off you, which are available during good times. And I think this is a very funny definition of a banker. Banker is somebody who offers you umbrella when it is not raining and take it away when the rain comes. I think a lot of fair weather friends will take away the support on technology, on manufacturing, on advanced manufacturing, on new thought process, when challenges will face you as a country. And therefore, today's generation has to think about geopolitics far more than we did, and must be aware because we are far more globally connected than we were. I mean, just imagine we are a $4.5 trillion economy, 800 billion is our exports. Now, if 200 billion or 100 billion or 80 billion gets impacted because of tariff, it still makes a dent. Now, that dent will go down quite quickly. So we need to think about alternates, and some of those alternates include the kind of manufacturing you're doing. So, for example, magnets are very important for motors. Now, without magnets, how do you produce a motor? Can you? Do you have the capability or the technology to produce? Now, those kind of questions will come up. Now, is this impact investing or not? Well, the kind of thinking, deep tech thinking, is also in the realm of impact investing. But that requires patience, it requires long-termism, it requires to think about impact that is non-obvious, and that to me is actually equally important in the India of today.
Completely agree. I loved the sentence or the phrase, the impact that is not obvious, but is certainly the need of the hour. Let's pivot and now talk about skills. In certain shape or format, we have touched them, but once again, a 21-year-old is watching you and wants to know the three major non-negotiable skills I need to have in this geopolitical scenario, in the artificial intelligence world, where a lot of the work can be done by AI. What are the three non-negotiable skills I should have that can, in certain shape or format, future-proof my career?
A calm mind, an ability to think during crisis, and to stay long-term in your thinking. These are the skills you need. Everything else you can learn. So if you have a calm mind, any kind of crisis, you'll be able to think through. And therefore, it's very important to think in between your ears rather than about skills. Skills are easy. You can hire a skill. So I can hire anybody. As on today, Vineet Rai would have never got into IITs, IIMs, Harvard, MIT. I would have personally never got into any of those places because I just didn't have the capability. But I have a risk-taking appetite. I had the ability to think about things. I have a very calm mind and I can think during extreme crisis, do things. Very few people have the desire to do that or understand or learn that. So, but this is not external. So I'm not competing against a million people to have a calm mind. I'm competing against myself. So instead of thinking about the world, thinking about the skills, thinking about what is going on, if you can actually self-engineer, go inside yourself and engineer yourself, you have a much higher chance of success in any environment with howsoever dynamism that is there.
I'm someone who is in the process of finding inner peace, and I firsthand understand what you're talking about, finding calm mind, especially between your 2 years. Last question, Vineet. you have built fantastic and successful institutions for almost 2 decades. In fact, I personally take inspiration from you as I am building bootstrapped institutions and ventures as well. What would be, once again, the last piece of advice you would want to give to a 20-year-old who doesn't just want to work for income, but wants to build a long-term legacy? I know that you said in the initial section that look out for the next 2 to 3 years, not for the long-term horizon. But I also think that things like integrity, things like morality somewhere also play a very integral role. Maybe they are not teachable. Maybe one learns all of them at home through parents. But would you have a view? What would you want to tell someone who is not working for income but wants to have a long-lasting legacy like you?
So I think legacy is the outcome of the life you lived. It's not an input. So the input is honesty, credibility, uh, saying, making a commitment, and then following through on it. Respecting others' time, like you want your time to be respected. Uh, Simple things. People don't respond to emails. People do not engage. People do not respect other person's time. So I think if you really want to be credible, you want to leave a legacy, you have to just become an ordinary, simple human being, and keep reminding yourself that you're an ordinary, simple human being. If you can just do that consistently, you will have a legacy of some sort at the end of your life. I don't think so. You need to make fancy statements. You need to actually be in the media. You need to actually make loud and boisterous claims to change the world. The world requires, and that's where you have to look at what ants do. So you simply have to become an ant. You don't need to actually become a lion. Lions are basically lions simply because we are the ones, humans, who have actually made them very celebrated. But if humanity has to learn anything, it's not from the lion, it has been from the ant. So it's a difficult thing to be an ant because you will not have a mane, you won't look great. But I think if you do your job well as an ant, your ant hill will actually become quite famous.
This is such a beautiful parting note, Vineet, especially the sentence around taking pride in being ordinary and simple. So here's to having an ordinary and a simple life and celebrating that. Thank you so much for your time, and have a safe flight to Japan.
Thank you so much.
I'm very excited to announce the launch of Da Vinci Lab for primarily enthusiasts of solopreneurship, people who want to start up, but they want to do it all alone. For those of you who do not know, in 2021, almost 4 years ago, I let go of the corporate rat race. On paper, I had it absolutely all: a consulting career, a global role, and a lifestyle that a lot of people would envy to have. However, deep inside, I felt trapped because I think deep inside, I also knew that I'm not working on things that drive me, I'm not working on things that excite me. And that is why I started my own venture. Starting Global Governance Initiative is the single most best decisions of my life. However, since starting, I was very clear that I do not want to raise venture capital. I do not want highest valuation, and I certainly didn't want to build a unicorn. On the contrary, I wanted to build something that was meaningful. On the contrary, I wanted to build something that through which I could get financial freedom. And I wanted to build it with the people that I absolutely admire and build it for the people that I really admire. So yes, very excited to launch Da Vinci Lab. It's an invite-only program for people who want to earn their first $1,000, or if you have already started. I know solopreneurship is an extremely lonely journey. We will use a lot of interesting toolkits, right from marketing to financing to building your value proposition to using artificial intelligence. Sam Altman recently said that the first $1 billion through a solopreneur model is a very near reality, and I do not doubt him. It is in fact a very close reality. You can do a lot of other things through artificial intelligence today. So shall you be interested? You can check the link of the application in the comment section. And I look forward to seeing the first cohort of Da Vinci Lab in September 2025 and beyond. Good luck.